If you've ever wondered why your blue minstrel heals feel more like a polite suggestion than a life saving miracle, stick around. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on all the secrets, tips, and tricks, and flat out game changing habits that separate the oh no, I'm dead minis from the wow, how are we still alive legends. And yes, somewhere in here, we're going to talk about the one skill that makes raid leaders practically swoon when they see it in action. Because once you master it, you're not just healing, you're bending the entire fight in your favor. So, if you want your fellowship to start treating you like the rock star of Raid Night, keep watching. Alright, let's start at the top. Minstrel 101. This is your crash course, your survival guide, your why did nobody tell me this sooner video. We're keeping it focused on the good stuff, the fundamentals every raiding minstrel needs to nail before they can start talking about high tier, mid tier, spreadsheet loving, parse chasing madness. This session is for anyone who's just stepping into group content as a blue mini, or maybe you've been healing landscape mobs and you've decided it's time to brave 6 mans, 12 mans, and yes, the occasional raid leader who's allergic to standing still. Scope wise, we're not going full PhD in minstrel math today, but we are going deep enough that you can walk into your next run confident, prepared, and ready to keep your team alive, even when mechanics decide to be, well, mechanics. Think of yourself as the steady heartbeat of the group. You're here to keep morale and morale bars high, turn wipe moments into victory shouts, and occasionally make DPS players wonder how you're casting so much and still dodging fire. You are the healer, the buffer, the clutch save, and today we're going to make sure you own it. At its core, your primary role is healer in raids. That means you'll be the one delivering burst heals when the tank's morale drops faster than your own composure, throwing out buffs that crank your team's survivability and damage output, and cleansing debuffs before they turn into a party wipe. You're the safety net, the stat boost, and the fixer of bad situations, often all in the same fight. Now, let's talk about trait lines, or as I like to call them, your blue mini's personality settings. Here's the thing, there are a lot of ways you can set up your traits, and if you ask 10 minstrels how to do it, you'll probably get 12 different answers. That's because the optimal build isn't one size fits all. It's dictated by the mechanics of the fight you're about to tackle. Big boss with constant AoE damage, you'll build one way. DPS race with very little group damage, totally different build. As a blue mini, you've got to be flexible, ready to tweak traits between pulls, so you're always bringing the best possible version of yourself to the fight. That said, there are a couple of non negotiables you always need to have: full access to your healing bubble, Legend of the Hammer Hand, because when things go sideways, that shield can turn a wipe into a win. Full access to Call to Greatness, the button that makes your entire raid stronger, faster, and happier that they brought you along. To get both of those must haves, your build will have to go deep into the blue line first, maxing out your healing potential, and then dipping into the yellow line as your secondary to grab the extra tools you need. You'll also want to make sure you have all 5 Blue Minstrel Anthems unlocked and ready to go, because trust me, later in this video, we're going to cover exactly why Anthem uptime is the secret sauce of great healing. Here's an example of my current blue build setup, so you can see how I've spec'd for general raid use, while still leaving myself room to swap traits if a fight calls for it. Feel free to pause the video and take a screenshot. Alright, let's talk numbers, because yes, even in a game about hobbits, elves, and giant flaming eyeballs, math matters. First thing to note, with every new level cap increase, the stat caps change. That means all those beautiful numbers you're so proud of now might be a little sad and underwhelming after the next expansion. The good news is you don't have to guess. There are always community members, bless their spreadsheeting loving hearts, who figure out the new caps almost immediately and post them for the rest of us to use. So keep an eye out for those posts because they'll save you a ton of time and headache. For Blue Minstrel right now, the current caps look like this. Critical rating around 216,000, outgoing healing 330,000, physical mitigation 125,000, tactical mitigation 117,000, and morale, frankly, as high as you can get it. Your priority order should be exactly that list. Start with crit, then cap OGH, then build up your mitigations. And when I say build mitigations, I mean build them together. You don't want to max physical and totally ignore tactical or vice versa. Keep them climbing evenly so you're balanced no matter what's hitting you. Now, about that OGH number. The percentage displayed in your character panel is kind of misleading. It won't tell you how far over the cap you've gone. So you might think you're fine when really you're stacking way too much into a stat that's giving you zero extra benefit. To see your actual raw OGH value, grab the plugin called Outgoing Healing. It'll show you exactly where you stand so you can fix any waste. And here's the other big thing. Going over these values leads to diminishing returns. That's just a fancy way of saying you're getting less and less bang for your buck, or none at all. If you want to truly min max your design, hit the cap and then stop. Move those extra stats into something that'll actually improve your performance instead of padding a stat that's already maxed. For more detailed explanation on stats, be sure to check out our stats video linked in the description below. Now that we've talked about what numbers you need, let's get into how you actually get there without selling your soul to RNG. We're going to break this down into three parts: armor, weapons, and virtues. When the new expansion drops, the natural progression is typically run the epic questline on at least one tune so you can see what goodies drop from there. This will typically unlock access to landscape armor and jewelry sets and oftentimes gold traceries. Next is crafted gear, great for filling the gaps as you level while you're waiting on dungeon drops. Third, adventurous gear. You can farm dailies, weeklies for embers and purchase adventure gear from the quartermaster. We also recommend that before an expansion, make sure you've got your embers maxed out. That way you'll be able to progress quicker. Fourth, delving missions. Once you hit level cap, these start giving you access to solid delving gear. Then 3 and 6 mans begin upgrading your gear as you go. This is where your set starts getting serious and ultimately raids. Raid content is your ticket to top tier armor and jewelry. Pro tip though, don't assume raid means best in slot for everything. Sometimes best in slot pieces will drop from either a high tier 3 mans or 6 mans or even allegiance rewards. So keep your eyes open for those gems. When choosing gear, remember the stat priority we just talked about. Reaching those numbers should guide every armor and jewelry decision you make. The same goes for essence slotting. Let your stats needs dictate what you put in, not the other way around. Essence slots give you the flexibility to customize your armor and jewelry. Your goal is always the same: fill them with the best essences available at your level cap. At the start of a new expansion, you'll usually be working with the basic essences designed for that tier. As you progress, crafted lively essences become your next step up, but your true best in slot will be vivid essences. These typically drop from high tier content, but you can also barter them at quartermasters using embers. The takeaway: always be upgrading. Don't settle for outdated essences when stronger ones are within reach. Your legendary items are where you can really fine tune your stats and your utility. First, there are two traceries that are absolutely non negotiable if you're healing. You need perfect healing word of craft traceries until you can replace them with the crafted heraldry of the mending owl. Both of these give you a 3% boost to outgoing healing on top of your armor and resonance stance. Without them, you won't be able to reach the 83% outgoing healing cap. Resonance stance is the single most important setting for Blue Minstrel. This stance is the backbone of your healing, increasing your outgoing healing by 10%. Always double check your stance before a fight, especially after relogging or swapping specs. Now, you'll see my current optimal traceries for my trade line setup on the screen. But here's the truth, there is no forever build. Your best setup can change depending on the fight. Take right now, for example. I'm not running ranged healing extension. Totally fine in most of the fights that we're facing right now. But in something like Hidden Horde of Abnakara, Hidden Horde, where we were fighting Hirmel, where tanks have to go for a scenic jog halfway across the map, that tracery becomes absolutely essential. That's the thing about legendary items. They're situational tools. What works today might not work next expansion, and it might not even work in your next raid. So, bottom line, have a solid core build you can rely on for your regular content, but keep a few extra traceries in your vault that you can swap in when the mechanics demand it. Your raid will thank you when you've got the right tool for the job. If your goal is to step foot into 12-man raids, one of the first things you need to do is max out your slotted virtues. Why? Because even when you're not actively slotting virtues, it's still giving passive bonuses. And those bonuses directly feed into your core stats like morale and mastery, which means a more survivable before you even press a button. Now, for most Blue Minstrels, your go to lineup is usually Fidelity, Loyalty, Compassion, Wisdom, and Honor. This setup gives you a nice spread of mitigations, morale, and tactical boosts that line up perfectly with our healing priorities. But, and this is the fun part, virtues are actually one of the easiest ways to tweak your build on the fly. If you've got them all maxed, you can swap them around depending on what you need most for a particular fight. Need more physical mitigation? Swap in a different set. Need more mastery? Adjust again. The higher your virtues, the more potent those bonuses become. And that means the more flexibility you have in tailoring your stats for what you're facing. So work on getting your virtues maxed out. But if you're just starting out, focus on getting the 5 ones that you're going to be slotting all the way maxed out, and then work on the others. Skills. This is where we get into the good stuff. The buttons you actually press. As a Blue Minstrel, your skill kit is a mix of healing power, team wide buffs, clutch defensive tools, and a sprinkle of utility magic that makes you the MVP in group content. We're going to break this down into 6 parts: ballads, anthems, healing priorities, how to crit a heal, defensive skills, and utility skills. By the end, you'll not only know what each skill does, you'll know exactly when to use it and why. Let's start with the core of your Blue Minstrel toolkit, your ballads. Think of them as the little musical building blocks that power your big buffs and unlock your anthems. Play them right, and you're a healing powerhouse. Play them wrong, and well, yeah, you're basically just a hobbit with a lute. Here's the big thing to understand: ballads stack 3 deep into the buffs they give you. And for a Blue Minstrel, 99% of the time, your focus will be on stacking Major Ballad. Why? Because 3 stacks of Ballad healing bonus will pump your outgoing healing up to 18%. That's huge. That's the difference between barely topping someone up and yoinking them out of the danger zone like a healing wizard. Major Ballad as Resonance Stance also gives you a small fellowship heal, but remember, your allies have to be within 8 meters of you to benefit. So positioning matters. Now, there is one exception. If you find yourself in a phase where the fellowship is taking almost no damage and you're in an active burn phase, you can switch gears and stack Minor Ballad instead. An example would be crushing tentacles on the boats during Depths of Magda Corbo, Boss 3. Minor ballads gives your fellowship the ballad damage bonus, which is plus 9% tactical damage. That's amazing if you're running with tactical DPS like Runekeepers and Lore Masters. But if you're in a physical mastery heavy group, total waste. Don't bother. What about Perfect Ballad? Honestly, the only time this one really shines is if you're in the tank group and your team doesn't need as much healing. It's a bit of a middle ground, giving your team a small tactical damage boost while still giving you a bump in outgoing healing. The thing is, though, blue minis rarely find themselves in the tank group in raids, so most of your time you're better off committing to one of the other two ballads. Think of Perfect Ballad as a niche tool, handy when the situation lines up, but not your default choice. A few more rules about stacking. You can have 3 ballads up at a time. Whichever ballad you play last will replace the oldest ballad buff you have active. So be deliberate in your rotation. And then there's the cash out mechanic. Your big finisher, Coda of Resonance, is a massive single target heal and also reduces that target's incoming damage. Sounds great, right? The catch is, it will cash out all of your ballots buffs when you use it. That means you'll need to restack your ballots immediately after, or your outgoing healing bonus will disappear faster than a hobbit in a mushroom patch. Bottom line, keep your ballot stacks up, don't waste minor ballots unless you're in the right group composition, and plan ahead if you're going to cash out with Coda. If ballads are the foundation, anthems are the crown jewels, the big, powerful buffs that make your fellowship stronger, tougher, and harder hitting. As a blue minstrel, knowing when and how to weave your anthems is the difference between being a healer and being the healer everyone wants in their group. Unlocking anthems. First thing to know, every anthem has a ballad requirement. Resonance requires 1 ballad. Compassion, 2 ballads. Composure, 1 ballad. Prowess, 2 ballads. Free Peoples, 3 ballads. Coda of Resonance, 3 ballads. So to even play an anthem, you've got to have the right number of ballad stacks ready. That's why keeping those stacks rolling is part of your job as a healer. It's not just about outgoing healing, it's about unlocking your most important tools. Next, you need to understand which anthems are paired. So, resonance will pair with compassion, and composure will pair with prowess. These are linked. Play one, and it will refresh the other if it's already active. That means once you have them all running, you only need to play one from each pair to keep both up. An easy way to tell if they are linked is that they have the same Roman numerals in the title. Free Peoples and Coda of Resonance are the outliers. They stand on their own and don't pair with anything. When you're first setting up in a fight, you want to get every anthem active so your raid has the full spread of buffs. These buffs range from fellowship wide to raid wide, so you're literally boosting the entire team's performance. Once they're all active, maintenance is straightforward. Play Resonance to refresh both Resonance and Compassion, then play Composure to refresh both Composure and Prowess, and then refresh Free Peoples. So here's what the typical maintenance rotation will look like. First, stack 3 ballads. 2, hit Resonance. 3, hit Cry of the Chorus, and then hit Piercing Cry to animation cut Cry of the Chorus, then hit Composure, and then you've got to sit around and wait for it to come up again, but then you can hit Free Peoples. And then you will just rinse and repeat, and if you do these all the time, in this order, you will be able to keep everything up at all times. Notice though that having if you have 3 ballots up, they will stay up all the time unless you cash out. So you won't have to renew those unless you cash them out. Now your opener. For your opener, you can change up the order of anthems based on the boss mechanics that you're facing, but you usually want to get Free People up as your second anthem. Why? Because it gives your fellowship plus 10% damage, and big skills like Oathies tend to go out around the 10-second mark. That means you want Free Peoples running before those big hits land. Since you are able to use Major Ballad out of combat, you can stack those 3 ballads just before the battle starts, giving you instant access to your first 2 anthems. So a typical opener rotation will be Stack 3 ballots before the best fight starts. Then once the fight starts, you're going to do prowess, grab the chorus to reset, piercing cry to cut animation, then do free peoples. Then you're going to go to healings and major ballad, waiting for cooldowns. Then when it comes up, you're going to hit resonance, craft course, piercing cry to reset, then hit compassion, then go about healing, and then do compassion when available. And then after that, you go back to your maintenance rotation. So, just a note on animation cutting, speed does matter when you're trying to get all of these up very quickly in the fight, especially at the start of the fight. You can animation cut Cry of the Chorus by using piercing cry, which is an instant cast. This shaves off downtime and gets your buffs up way faster. It is extremely important that you take time to read and understand each of your anthems, because you're going to need them in different situations. This is where we come to understanding your healing profile and how it matches the damage profile. And if you have questions about that, I'll refer you to the video that we just released on healing ascensions to go check that out. But so for anthems, here's my shorthand that I use and how I think of each of them. So resonance, this makes you a stronger healer. Compassion reduces your threat generation and reduces fellowship damage taken. Composure restores your power, huge for long fights, and adds mitigation to your fellowship. Prowess increases melee damage. Free Peoples increases fellowship wide damage and includes a self heal. Coda of Resonance is a finisher. This is the massive single target heal and damage reduction, but remember, if you hit Coda, you're cashing out all your ballads and you have to restack them. So you need to take that into consideration. Anthems aren't just nice to have, they are some of the strongest buffs in the game, and keeping them up is one of the best ways you can help out your raid. Time to get into the heart of what makes the Blue Minster, well, blue, your heals. These are your bread and butter skills, the ones you'll be weaving together in every fight to keep your team standing. We're going to walk through the big ones in your kit in order you'll most often use them and talk about when and why to use each. Raise the Spirit. This is your fast, small heal. This is a quick one, a single target top up. The induction is short, which makes it perfect for stabilizing someone who's taken a hit but isn't in immediate danger of being flattened. Think of it as your keep them healthy button, not your pull them back from the brink button. Next, bolster courage, your primary big heal. This is your main single target heal. It's slower than Raise the Spirit, but it packs a lot more punch. You'll use this when someone's health drops hard and they need a bigger chunk of healing to get back to safety. The long induction means you have to be mindful of timing. Start casting before things get critical, not after. Inspire Fellows is your fellowship heal. It is one of the strongest tools for group wide health maintenance. It's a fellowship wide heal with a 20-meter range, making it perfect for stabilizing after an AoE hit or during sustained group damage. It's not instant cast, you will need to plant your feet, so timing is key. The real bonus, it also grants your fellowship plus 1% physical and tactical mitigation for 30 seconds. This makes it especially valuable before and after predictable raid-wide damage. Use it both reactively and proactively to recover health and soften incoming blows. Soliloquy of Spirit is your layered protection. This is your hot, okay? So, Soliloquy of Spirit is more than just a safety net, it's a steady stream of healing paired with a protective shield, making it perfect for smoothing out incoming damage. Whenever possible, keep 3 stacks rolling on each tank, especially if you're not grouped directly with them in a raid. When you've slotted inner strength, each stack also grants plus 1% physical and tactical mitigation, stacking up to 3%. That's a meaningful defense boost for your frontliners. Thanks to its generous duration, you can refresh it well before it drops, without cutting into your other heals, ensuring your tanks are constantly cushioned against both burst and sustained hits. Now, if you're going to use it proactively, if you know a big hit is coming, then you should put it on everybody that absolutely has to stay alive, like the tanks, the healers, and your main DPS. Next, Court of Salvation, your emergency nuke heal. This is a big single target rescue heal that also pings the Fellowship with a small top up, which makes it perfect for stabilizing your focus target while smoothing the group after incidental damage. Pair it with one of your guaranteed crit button for those no you're not dying moments. Perfect Ending is your bonus heal at the end of a healing gamut, triggered after certain skills. It's instant, free, and can sometimes be the push that tops someone off. Think of it as extra icing on a cake. It's not your main healing plan, but it's a nice sweetener when it procs. Often will be paired with Cord of Salvation. Now, healing is good, but critical healing is glorious. Knowing how and when to force a heal to crit can be the difference between a clean save and a full group wipe. That's where Call to Irith comes in. The power of Call to Irith is one of the most important buttons in your entire kit. On use, it guarantees your next healing skill will crit and boost your critical healing magnitude by 53%. That's a massive spike in output, but it only applies to the very next heal you use. Timing is everything here. Call to Irith has a short animation, so wait for it to fully complete before hitting your follow-up heal. You'll know it's active when you see the Call to Irith buff appear on your bar. For maximum value, you want to pair Call to Irith with a skill that heals multiple targets, ideally something like Triumphant Spirit. This combo turns Triumphant Spirit into a gigantic fellowship saving nuke heal that can recover the group from the brink after a massive AoE hit. The catch? Triumphant Spirit is extremely power hungry and has a 33-second cooldown. It's not something you want to throw out just for fun. Save it for when your group is teetering on the edge of disaster. If you want more sustainable option, pair Call to Irith with Inspire Fellows. It costs far less power and will still pump out a huge chunk of healing to your fellowship, enough to stabilize them after most AoE damage. Saving a tank from the Reaper. When it's a single target emergency, usually a tank or other healer, your priority is to hit them with your biggest, hardest crit possible. Here's a common sequence. First, target the player in danger. 2. Coda of Resonance applies an incoming healing boost to them. 3. Call to Irith guarantees your next heal crits. 4. Bolster Courage, your biggest single target heal. 5. Court of Salvation, more healing. 6. Perfect Ending, free instant heal if it procs. Once your priority target is safe, you can weave in Call to Irith and Triumphant Spirit or Inspire Fellow to catch up on fellowship-wide healing, then drop back into your normal maintenance rotation for ballads, anthems, and heals. The goal is to treat Call to Irith like a precision tool, not a spam button. Use it when the stakes are highest, and your heals will feel like magic. When you're a blue minstrel, you're not just healing, you're also part of your raid's defensive backbone. Between your bubbles, damage reduction abilities, and big burst heals, you can save a group before their health bars even drop. But the real magic? Knowing when to fire them off and coordinating with your fellow healers. So for bubbles, it's your first line of defense. You have 3 different types of bubbles to work with. First, a Song of Hammerhand. This is your personal shield. Grants 141k morale for 30 seconds and reduces your incoming damage by 10%. This is great for keeping yourself standing during punishing AoE phase. Next is Gift of the Hammerhand, your targeted fellowship bubble. Base version grants 72k morale and a 10% damage reduction. The bubble strength is 20% of the target's max morale before bonuses. So A, with the word spreads trait selected, you can hit 3 allies, your target plus the 2 closest to them. And B, the improved version, Improved Gift of the Hammerhand, Also grants 5% single target attack damage for 15 seconds, which makes it a great pre-burn phase buff that you can add to the DPS that's doing the most damage. 3. Legend of the Hammerhand, your fellowship-wide bubble hits everyone within 20 meters with a 72k shield, and if traded, also adds plus 2.5% single target attack damage for 15 seconds. It even ends with a small 10k fellowship heal when it expires after 15 seconds. So if you're pure healing, these bubbles are proactive protection against incoming big hits. But if your group stable and DPS is a bigger concern, you can swap traits to give the attack damage buff instead. Just remember, bubbles are on a 2-minute cooldown, so coordinate with other classes to avoid blowing all defensives at once. Damage reduction tools and sustained healing. So Song of Aid is a 30-meter range, open with a 20k fellowship heal, then a hot, but the real star here is the damage reduction. Minus 15% damage taken for 10 seconds, then minus 5% for the next 15 seconds. Use it before predictable AoE, not after, okay, because it's damage reduction. The cooldown is 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Fellowship Heart is 20-meter range, immediate 17k heal and a hot for 30 seconds, and removes up to 3 fear effects. Within 2-minute cooldown, it's a strong recovery tool after big damage has already happened. Triumphant Spirit, we've covered this before, but it bears repeating. Huge burst fellowship heal, not strictly a defensive in the shield sense, but its timing can prevent a wipe. If you know that the AoE is going to kill everybody whose health is below 50%, you can hit Triumphant Spirit before the AoE happens and make sure that everybody is still alive after the AoE goes off. Communicate with other healers so you're not all using your big burst heals at once. The key to defensive mastery is communication. Plenty of classes bring defensives, and stacking them all at the same time wastes their potential. Talk to your healing team and raid leader about defensive rotation, who's covering which mechanic and when, and keep an eye on your power bar because these skills are power hungry. Use them right, and you'll feel less like a healer and more like the raid's guardian angel. Utility skills. Being a blue minstrel isn't just about raw healing. You also bring some of the most valuable utility in all of LOTRO. These are the skills to prevent wipes, remove debilitating effects, and supercharge your raid's most powerful cooldowns. First up, Rally, your rapid in-combat res. You have the shortest in-combat resurrection cooldown in the game, and if you run the right traceries, you can bring it down to 2 minutes. That means, in theory, you can res a fallen ally every 2 minutes. Other classes can res in combat too, Yellow Bjornings, Captains, and Red Minstrels, but you're the first line of defense when it comes to bringing people back. Why? Because as a healer, you're already watching everyone's health bars. The moment someone dies, it's your responsibility to get them up. If your res is on cooldown, make a clear verbal call out for the next person in the res order to take it. Don't wait for the raid leader to call it. The delay costs valuable seconds. Pro tip: always check res order and priority with your raid leader before the fight. The goal is to get them back on their feet so quickly it's like they never died. Story of Courage, Cleansing Like a Boss. The skill removes disease, wound, fear, and poison from your entire fellowship, and with a 10-second cooldown. It's one of the fastest cleanses in the game. In fights where debuffs stack up, this needs to be used on cooldown the second it's available. And as the Blue Minstrel, cleansing is your job. Don't wait for the raid leader to tell you to cleanse. Stay ahead of it and keep your team moving. Call to Greatness is quite possibly the most powerful skill in LOTRO, and it's yours. What it does: resets one major skill for each class in the game. For Blue Minstrel, that's Legend of Helm Hammerhand. For others, it can be things like Oathies, Bothies, Growthies, Nature's Fury, SAF Exaltation, to name a few. Who calls it? Your raid leader will typically decide when CTG is used. but this responsibility can also be dedicated to someone else. If you're the blue minstrel in the group, you'll be listening for the call. Do not use it without it being called. The exhausted debuff. Once CTG is used, your fellowship gets a debuff called exhausted. It reads, after being called to push past your normal limits, you need time to recover. This debuff prevents back-to-back CTG use. If you have more than one minstrel in the group, this means you cannot chain CTGs back-to-back. Always check you do not have the exhausted debuff before using CTG. The skill will go off, but it won't do anything, wasting a 7-minute cooldown. So if your raid leader calls for it and you see the debuff is on, just say it's on cooldown. How to use it effectively. First, use your own Legend of Helm Hammer hand before CTG so you get the reset too. Then, don't just fire it off instantly. Give a verbal 3-second cooldown so every player can activate their big cooldowns before the reset. Inexperienced players may not know their CTG skill, so be ready to tell them in DM if needed. Why it's so powerful. If timed well, especially during burn phases, CTG can push your raid's DPS through the roof, but if you ignore exhausted or mistime the skill, you'll waste one of the biggest tools in your arsenal. Being a blue minstrel isn't just about pushing huge HPS numbers onto the screen. It's about weaving yourself into the rhythm of your fellowship. If you play like a solo act, you're missing the whole point. Positioning. Your heals are most effective when you're in range of everyone who needs them, but you also need to stay safe. Think of yourself as the eye of the storm, in the middle of the action, but just far enough back to avoid being clobbered. Keep an eye on your fellowship's positioning and adjust yours accordingly, especially in fights with frequent movement or dangerous ground effects. Many of your heals and buffs have 20-meter range caps, so if you drift too far, you're basically singing to yourself. Survivability. Dead minstrels heal no one. Make full use of your bubbles, defensive skills, and self heals, even if you think you're safe. Watch for mechanics that target healers, especially because, yes, some bosses are just that petty. Learn the timing of incoming raid-wide damage so you can pre-shield or pre-cast big hills without panicking. This comes back to understanding the healing profile and the damage profile of the fight that you're in. Synergy with other roles. Coordinate with other healers so you're not doubling up your biggest cooldowns. Spread them out for maximum coverage. With tanks, your job is to keep them alive while they keep everything else off you. Pay attention to when they use their personal defensive cooldowns so you can play your own accordingly. With DPS, your buffs and call to greatness usage can significantly boost burn phases. Don't underestimate how much you contribute to the raid's overall damage. Communicate constantly, whether it's rezzing, cleansing, or calling CTG. Your voice and comms can save more lives than your heals alone. Pro tip. If you're doing your job right, most players won't even notice, because nothing feels dire. The raid just flows. That's the magic of the minstrel, who understands positioning, synergy, and survival. A well prepared blue minstrel doesn't just rely on muscle memory and good intentions. We use every tool available to make our lives easier and our heals sharper. LOTRO's plugin community has created some absolute gems. First up, buff bars. This is a gold standard for tracking buffs, debuffs, and cooldowns, essential for monitoring things like anthems and exhausted. You can set it to scream at you visually when something is about to drop off, so you're never caught mid-song without your important buffs. Mini Raid is basically your battle dashboard as a blue minstrel. It's lightweight plugin that lets you keep every health bar in your fellowship and raid in one tidy, customizable panel. You can also set custom alerts, set it to flag people who drop below certain morale thresholds, so you can pounce with a heal before they hit the floor. Combat analysis tracks your healing output, crit rates, skill breakdowns, and effectiveness over time. Helps you identify where you're crushing it and where you need some work. Can be extremely useful in diagnosing a fight. If TPS, damage taken per second, is greater than the collective HPS, heals per second, of the healers, then it explains why the tank keeps dying. Not enough debuffs on the boss, or HPS is too low. Super useful in mid tier to high tier content to really understand what's happening in the fight, how to diagnose the problem, and come up with solutions. Outgoing healing, I mentioned this before, but this is um, the game character panel doesn't tell you how far over cap you are on outgoing healing. It'll just show 83% until infinitum. This plugin fills that gap. It lets you fine tune your gear and essences so you're not wasting stats in outgoing healing that you don't need. It's absolutely vital if you're min maxing your build. Other plugins, you can use minstrel buffs too to watch mini anthems. No Res for You is a plugin when in combat is able to post how much time is left till your cooldown is available as a great communication tool to clean up communications. So common mistakes and how to avoid them. Even veteran minstrels can trip up in the chaos of a fight. Here are the pitfalls I see most often and how you can dodge them like the true bardic ninja. Letting buffs and anthems drop. The mistake. Forgetting to refresh your anthems or ballad stacks mid-fight, leaving your group without critical healing bonuses, mitigation, or damage boosts. Fix it. Build a maintenance habit. Use buff bars to monitor your anthems and refresh them before they drop off. After every big heal window, refresh your ballads, hit your paired anthems, check free people's uptime. Don't wait until they're gone, or you'll have to apply all 5 anthems instead of just 3. Reapply early so you don't have to scramble. Next, blowing Call to Iris on the wrong skill. The mistake, using your guaranteed crit button on a small single target heal instead of high value AoE or emergency heals. Fix it. Plan your crits. In fellowship wide damage phases, pair it with Triumphant Spirit or Inspire Fellows. For tank emergencies, set up the Bolster Courage Cord of Salvation perfect ending chain that we went over. Ignoring mitigations and bubbles. The mistake, treating bubbles like panic buttons instead of proactive shields. Fix it. Learn the fight timers. Learn the damage profile from the boss so that you can adjust your healing profile. Pre-bubble fellowship before damage busters, and use hammer hand in sync with burn phases or AoE windows. Remember, prevention is cheaper than healing. Neglecting cleanses. The mistake. Waiting for a call out before cleansing poison, disease, wounds, or fear, letting them chip away at your group. Fix it. Keep Story of Courage on cooldown and cleanse heavy fights. Your 10-second cooldown is one of the shortest in the game, so use it. Poor positioning. The mistake. Standing out of range for key heals or putting yourself in danger, forcing other healers to cover you. Fix it. Keep tanks in your line of sight, maintain 20 meter from DPS, and watch for mechanics to force you to reposition. Remember, dead healers don't heal. Mismanaging Call to Greatness. The mistake. Firing off CTG without checking for exhausted or without syncing with your raid leader's plan. Fix it. Always confirm you're clear of exhausted before casting. Give a 3-second warning before you pop it so everyone's ready to fire their reset skills. Overhealing and power starvation. The mistake. Spamming big heals on every scratch and running out of power before the final phase. Fix it. Trust your HOTS and use smaller heals during light damage periods. Save the heavy hitters for when bars are actually dropping. Advanced tips and tricks. Sometimes healing full time isn't enough. Maybe the fight is light on damage, or your raid leader wants more DPS to push a tight burn phase. That's when the blue-red hybrid minstrel steps into the spotlight, still keeping the group alive, but weaving in serious damage buffs. So when to go blue-red? You don't hybrid just because you're bored. You hybrid with intention. The fight's incoming damage is predictable and low. Your raid has another full healer covering primary sustain healing, and you need to contribute extra DPS to meet a timer or break a shield phase. If any of those aren't true, you're gonna stay pure blue. Trade adjustments for hybrid play. You can run a hybrid build without swapping to a completely different trade setup and build. You will, however, sacrifice a few blue line points to pick up Thunderous Codas, which will give you bigger damage finishers, Word Spreads, which extends certain buffs, debuffs to more targets, Perfect Performance, which will boost minor ballad tactical damage, Call to Orome, which is a massive AoE damage skill. These changes push your DPS potential without fully abandoning your healing tools. Switching to Dissonant Stance. Hybrid play for a Blue Minstrel means moving into Dissonant Stance for damage. The impact. You're going to lose access to all your Fellowship heals. Your major ballad becomes an offensive skill. Coda of Vigor transforms into Coda of Fury, dealing massive light damage. And Coda of Fury also grants 5% outgoing damage to allies with 30 meters and 30 seconds. And remember, Coda is going to cash out all your ballots. The stance swap should be deliberate. Save it for when you're about to execute your hybrid rotation. So, hybrid burst rotation in the middle of a fight. Swap to Dissonant Stance, cast 3 minor ballots to stack the damage buff, fire Coda of Fury for highlight damage and group DPS boost, drop Timeless Echoes of Battle for a steady dot, only to apply this once to the target. If traded, we even call to Orome for AoE pressure. It hits up to 5 targets. Repeat as fight pacing allows, but always be aware of when healing needs will spike again and be ready to swap back. Once the DPS check is met, stand swap back to Resonance immediately. This restores your full healing kit, including Fellowship heals. The faster you swap back, the less downtime your team will suffer if damage spikes unexpectedly. Maintaining anthems, buffs, in hybrid mode. Even while in Dissonant Stance, you can keep your anthems rolling for your group. This means you can stay in hybrid mode long enough to contribute damage without letting your Fellowship buffs drop. Just remember to refresh them before swapping back to full heals. Playing Blue Minstrel at a high level isn't just about hitting the right buttons. It's about awareness, adaptability, and communication. Your value to the raid goes far beyond raw healing numbers. You're the safety net, the buffer, the one who keeps the wheels turning when things start to fall apart. Master the fundamentals: stance control, ballad and anthem synergy, heal crit timing, and then build on that foundation with situational awareness and raid coordination, matching your healing profile to the damage profile. Be flexible in your trade lines, gear, and traceries to match the fight in front of you. And remember, your utility skills are just as important as your heals. Timely reses, cleanses, and CTG calls can turn the tide of a battle. Above all, stay calm under pressure. When the raid is in chaos, your composure sets the tone for everyone else. The more confident and prepared you are, the more your team will trust you to keep them alive, whether you're pure blue or stepping into hybrid territory. If you take nothing else from this guide, take this. A great blue minstrel isn't just a healer, they're the heart of the fellowship. If you're on Glamdring, I'd love for you to join Mithril Academy, our Discord based guild. We're currently recruiting and getting organized for the upcoming expansion, building a solid core group to dive into content right at launch. Whether you're a healer, DPS, or tank, if you're eager to learn, grow, and raid in a supportive community, we'd love to have you. Discord link is in the description below. Come make your mark with us, and as always, happy hunting.